PTV Sports, ngayon makausap natin live via Zoom ang Philippine Paralympic Committee President na si President Michael Barredo.
Good morning.
Good
Magandang
morning.
umaga. Good morning, Meg and Joshua.
Good morning, Sir Michael. Welcome to PTV Sports.
Thank you very much for inviting.
Sir Mike, first of all, we want to congratulate the impressive performance of our Philippine Para Team delegation in the recently concluded 13th ASEAN Para Games. It was such a beautiful performance from our team, Philippines.
Yes,
Now-
yes. We're all very happy about it, yeah.
Now, Sir Mike, how would you evaluate the performance of our para team in the recently concluded ASEAN Para Games? Most especially, this is the highest medal haul of our delegation in the history of ASEAN Para Games.
Well, I would still, I've always been optimistic. I'm sorry, there seems to be echo.
Go ahead, Sir Mike.
Okay, and lagi akong guarded optimism sa pero sa akin, I felt that we were going to outdo what we did back in Cambodia a couple of years ago. Pero sa akin, I would still, they did very good. Maybe next time around in Malaysia for the Southeast Asian Games, we will become excellent. But it is definitely an achievement na nakaabot tayo ng itong fourth place finish, and of course the medals of 45 gold, 37 silver, 52 bronze, or a total of 134. Also, much better than the 34 gold medals we had in Cambodia. So malaking bagay ito, and I congratulate all our athletes, their coaches, and everybody that supported our Philippine team to the 13th ASEAN Para Games in Ratchasima.
Sir, our Philippine para swimmers and para athletics specifically have been phenomenal with their medal run. What can you say about this section?
Siguro, I would attribute this to the fact that we are also now being able to get new players. No? Nagkakaroon tayo ng mga younger players that are coming in. The palarong pambansa, especially sa athletics, has really been adding to our expanding pool of athletes. And then, of course, swimming, yung kanilang programa, no? That they have, they connect, of course, Raul Rosario and, of course, Coach Tony, they connect with the other swimming clubs across the country. So, malaking bagay yung ating youth program. At siguro idagdag ko na rin yung ginagawa namin training the trainers. No? We have a training the trainer program where we go to 5 major areas and we promote the para sports, Paralympic movement, and depende sa area, at least 6 to 7 sports, including, of course, classification na napakalaking bagay, no, sa ating efforts sa Paralympic at Para Games. No?
Sir Mike, now that you've mentioned that there are a lot of para-athletes coming off from the Palarong Pambansa, how do you think that this expanding talent of pool of our para-athletes strengthen the future of Philippine para sports?
Well, first of all, I'd like to commend Joel Gariada, our point person sa Palarong Pambansa representing Filispada, our umbrella National Sports Federation. Kasi we've had discussions, no, sa Department of Education. We've been doing this off and off for the last, well, more than 10 years already. At we're trying to improve. We're requesting that we are able to get maybe a couple of more sports. Siguro pwede pang dagdagan ng 2 sport sa existing 4 that we have at the Palarong Pambansa. And the President himself, of course, mentioned that this is definitely the major, call it, sports program where we are able to tap the younger athletes in the country, including para-athletes. So sa akin, for as long as we can continue this, increase the programs, we're hoping that we can, again, I mentioned classification, include the possibility of classification orientation to all the teachers and people involved in recruiting or fielding in para-athletes. And I'm hoping that, Chairman Pato Gregorio, I'd like to, of course, thank the Philippine Sports Commission for all our support it's given us throughout the years, and especially now, na nabanggit niya, no, during our send-off prior to leaving for the ASEAN Para Games na maisasama na rin kami this year, starting this year, sa Batang Pinoy. Again, an additional factor kasi nga, tatlong area, no? We have physically impaired, we have the visually impaired, intellectually impaired, major disability groups. And sa palarong pambansa, lacking tayo sa physically impaired at this point. But with the Batang Pinoy and other youth programs and maybe call it introducing other tournaments, we'll be able to expand our pool of athletes, no? Or pool of para-athletes.
Sir Mike, so far, if I'm not mistaken, we have only 4 para-sports included in Palarong Pambansa. How many para-sports are you looking for na sana po na ma-introduce po both in Palarong Pambansa and Batang Pinoy?
Actually, I even cut it down to 3, no? Athletics, well, para-athletics, para-swimming, and goalball, which is specific for the visually impaired. The 4th sport is bocce, which is really a Special Olympics sport, which is not in the Paralympic program. But we're hoping to include at least maybe, well, it is the Department of Education that is kind of careful about inclusion because of maybe their budget constraints, the number of participants, etc. Pero hopefully, table tennis, para-table tennis might be an easy entry. And maybe we're looking other, maybe some martial arts sports kung kakayanin. Kumbaga, kung ano rin sa programa sa Palarong Pambansa, the easier way we can add, in other words, the venues are there, the equipment is there, and all of these other, officiating and all that would be easier to bring in. But if we could bring in 3 or 4 more, well, 2, naka-demo pa nga siya, no? But at least the introduction would be there. Sana umabot tayo hanggang 8 within the next siguro 2 to 3 editions. I'm meaning to say 4 to 5 more para sports that can be introduced at the Palarong Pambansa. If they cannot be introduced there, ipasok naman natin sa Batang Pinoy.
Yes, sir. Well, with this historical success, sir, how do you think this will impact our country, especially yung mga aspiring para-athletes natin? And may we also ask how huge the additional allowance and government support that were given to you guys?
Impact-wise, of course, I would like to stress the fact that we are aligned with the International Paralympic Committee and the Asian Paralympic Committee's vision, which is to make for an inclusive world, an inclusive Asia, and therefore an inclusive Philippines through para sports. That is an impact that we would like altogether. But of course, impact-wise, the Filipino people, ating mga kababayan, should become more and more aware of the fact that there is such a thing as para sports or Paralympic sports, the counterpart of the Olympics, the Asian Games, and the Southeast Asian Games right now, including, of course, sub-regional, regional pocket tournaments or tournaments that happen with the sports, respectively. So, malaking impact ito, and of course, the fact that our countrymen will realize that we do have athletes with disabilities can also bring honor, pride, to our country. Now, as far as support is concerned, I think I can only thank the Philippine government through President Marcos Jr., who is a sports-minded person, and of course supported by his wife Lisa Araneta, and through the Philippine Sports Commission, chaired by Pato Gregorio, and of course the commissioners, particularly of course our commissioner in charge, Commissioner Ed Haico, and of course all the other commissioners that are there helping us out. No? So sa akin, palagay ko, the support in terms of benefits, let's put it that way, are pretty much at par already with our able-bodied athletes. However, we still need to make a push, and I'm hoping that these games will persuade, encourage our legislators, especially in the Senate and in the lower house, to amend, especially our incentive program. No? Doon tayo nagkakaroon ng konting, call it disparity or hindi siya equal. The Republic Act 10699, which is the expanded act which finally recognized athletes with disabilities, does not, hindi parehas. No? In other words, our incentives for the counterpart multi-sport events are only half of what our able-bodied athletes get. So far in the Senate hearings and in the congressional hearings of our respective sports committees, Senator Bongo, in the last hearing we've had, and we will have another one soon, has expressed and has refiled actually, together with other senators, the amendment to 10699 to make incentives equal to those of able-bodied athletes, and of course for the coaches as well. And in the lower house also, there are bills that are pending now and being consolidated na masana maging parehas na rin. Chairman Pato reiterated in that Senate hearing that definitely the Sports Commission has no objection. It is more than willing to push this forward, as well as the Philippine Olympic Committee representative that was there that said that there is no objection. I cannot see anybody really wanting to object this, but it just takes so long. Yung proseso, it took us 12 years just to get the para-athletes and their coaches included, no? When we rescinded and replaced 9064 with 10699. So, ito, tumatagal na naman. The law was passed 10 years, well, 11 years ago now, which was signed by President Noynoy Aquino back in 2015. So, sa pagtaon na, and I'm hoping that sana fast track natin ito through an urgent certification by the President. I know it's a minor thing, but it's a big thing for our sector. And I'm hoping that sana lahat ng kasama natin sa sport community, suportahan ito, kasama na dyan ating private sector.
Sir Mike, with that call of equality in terms of support, how important now is the role of the government and the private sector, as well as the international partners, to ensure the growth and development of para sports here in the country, most especially in the future?
Well, definitely the international organizations, especially our mother organization, the International Paralympic Committee, is really moving heaven and earth, so to speak, to be able to bring our National Paralympic Committee and the international federations further, and by way of trying to get sponsors internationally. I think they are global partners now, and hopefully all of these programs are being brought or trickled down, of course, to all the National Paralympic Committees. Unlike the International Olympic Committee, they are able to provide subsidy to all their National Olympic Committees worldwide as extensions, and therefore support their administrative requirements. Whereas in the Paralympic movement, we have to raise our own funds to be able to support the personnel and manpower we need to service our athletes and our coaches and all that are concerned with the development of para sports. So we're having a difficulty there because definitely manpower is important. However, with the Philippine Sports Commission giving us all our support, the government and the private sector slowly coming in, well, the MVP Sports Foundation led by Manny Pangilinan has come in. They have slowly been helping out and putting some support to some of the para sports that we are presently engaged in or participating in. I'm hoping that maybe the other big companies like the San Miguel Group, the Gokongwei Group, that are all involved with sports will be able to come in. I'm also asking the PRISA, hopefully we can work with them, the NCAA group, the UAAP group that can help promote this in the schools, because we have athletes now, para-athletes or people with disability that are now mainstream or integrated or included already in inclusive education. So we have to source them all out. But yun na rin siguro that there might be Filipinos with disabilities abroad that are into sports, and maybe we can bring them home and let them represent the country as well. There have been some athletes worldwide, Filipino or born as Filipinos that have also excelled in sports in other countries. So we're hoping to be able to bring this all together. And I think the awareness is there, not yet where we want it to be. The support is there, can still be improved and added to. And once we get the nation to play and realize that para sports is very important in giving confidence and self-esteem to our people with disability, then altogether it will be a good effort. I think there is always a saying I keep on repeating once in a while, said by a famous politician before, that a nation's strength can best be measured by the way it treats the weakest of its people. And if we can bring our para-athletes further up and achieve, then we're doing well for the sector that needs all the help it can get.
Okay. Well, speaking of raising awareness, Sir Mike, perhaps you can share with us what are your grassroots program and how do we make sure that sustainable ito, or to make this sustainable aside from the things that you have mentioned, partnership with the private sector and with the government?
Well, again, the important thing, I suppose the formula that works all the time would be expanding the national pool or pool of athletes altogether, getting as many potential athletes across the country. We're barely touching the surface when we talk about the athletes that are coming in. Many of our athletes with gold medals that are now doing very well come from other parts of our country, not all from NCR. And then, of course, the 3 disability groups that I mentioned, we have to be able to tap into these groups and all the national organizations that are involved. And then siguro kailangan din natin, this is one thing, it's called the cornerstone of disability sports, and this is classification. One of the very important programs of the International Paralympic Committee and the Asian Paralympic Committee, and even our ASEAN Parasports Federation, is classification. The sooner we are able to understand the classification or category of the disability, it's very hard to explain. It's going to take more than an hour just to explain the basics of what classification is. But this is where we level the playing field, when it comes to the disability groups, the impact of the disability on the sport, and the moment we are able to identify their degree of disability, then we know how to move forward in training them, the kind of equipment they need, and all the things that come together with it, sports science, nutrition, and all. Siguro, importante, doon pa lang sa umpisa, alam na natin kung ano ang level o ng ating, or category ng ating atletang may kapansanan with a disability. And from there, we can make a better program. So that's important. We need to push that across. We're trying to increase our pool of classifiers in our country, tapping ophthalmologists, optometrists in the area of visual impairment, tapping people with rehab medicine, orthopedic surgeons, orthopedic doctors, rehabilitation doctors in physical impairment, and psychologists and people involved with intellectual impairment or those with learning problems, for us to be able to tap that particular sector as well. So in other words, all of this have to come into play towards the future, so that we can, the equipment, of course, other countries have definitely state-of-the-art, talagang very advanced equipment, but we are able to now, with this, again, with the support of government, able to do this. And hopefully, if government is unable to provide these requirements we have, this is maybe where the private sector can come in. Because the government is looking at how many, 50, 70 national sports associations under the Philippine Olympic Committee. By the way, I'd like to thank Bambol Tolentino, our president of POC, who's been very cooperative, and the NSAs to help us out. And this is where we can all come in. And eventually, the more athletes there are, the more support there is, I suppose the more medals will be able internationally. And I think a more, call it, holistic and involved citizenry when it comes to sports and physical fitness. So everybody included.
Now, Sir Mike, after the ASEAN Para Games, how are you preparing for the next big competitions like the Asian Para Games and the Paralympics?
Well, the counterpart sports we have is pretty much almost very similar to the cycle that the Philippine Olympic Committee or the Olympic cycle is. After the Southeast Asian Games, we have the ASEAN Para Games. After the Asian Games, the Asian Para Games, which will be in Nagoya in October after the Asian Games. And then, of course, the Paralympics in 2028. So, and then all in between that, we will have the qualifiers and all of these other things that lead up, of course, to our final, the highest level of competition, which will be the World Games and, of course, the Paralympic Games. So I will think the preparation, I'd like to mention, this is a discussion I've had with our coaches and of course, our officials in the Philippine Paralympic Committee and PhilSpada. I spoke to Goody Custodio. I'd like to congratulate him, the chef de mission to the ASEAN Para Games. His deputies, Kiko Diaz and Melet Bonoan at the Games. We have had discussions and with some coaches that let's do this strategically, Let us study the number of participants there are, let's say with the other countries, at least in the Southeast Asia muna, how many participated in the number of sports? There were 19. How many did they? We were in 15 or 16. How many were there in athletics, swimming, and all the other sports that were there? How many do we have? In other words, what is the full complement for para-athletics, for example? Is it 40? How many do we have? 20? Let's get 20 more. In swimming, how many are there? 20 plus in so many events, in so many categories, in disability, visually, physical, and intellectual. Pasok lahat yan. How many more can we get? So it's expand these numbers and let's look for more of potential athletes across the country. Let's introduce this at the Palaro, at the Batang Pinoy. So altogether, it's got to be strategic. It's what other countries do. Where are our strengths? We saw athletics, swimming. Unfortunately, chess will be limited so far to the Southeast Asian level, or ASEAN. So we must look at our potentials in the Olympic program. So malaking bagay ito, and I'd like to approach it scientifically, strategically, with all what we can do, and that is how others are doing it. And I think once we're able to establish the data, we're able to determine where we're strong at, then let's give this a push. And I believe by doing so, we will be able to win more medals, be more competitive, and hopefully, eventually, get that elusive gold medal at the Paralympic Games.
Sana nga marami pang ma-inspire na aspiring para-athletes dito, Meg.
Yes,
Actually, kanina
absolutely.
pinapanood ko yung footage. Grabe yung mga para-swimmers. Magaling pang lumangoy sa akin.
And they've broken a total of 7
Oo, kita mo.
records dito sa kagaganap ng 13th ASEAN Para
Yes. Yes.
Ang galing, ang galing.
After
So, ang
18
ganda talaga ng programa.
Well, on that note, maraming
These are the
salamat.
younger people. Yeah.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Ito na yung mga, pero yung, wag na natin sabihin, yung ating mga veterans din, malaking bagay din sila. Kasi sila ang nagbibigay ng advice at kumpiyansa. No, malaking bagay yung confidence, di ba? Habang bago, and ako, I have to just mention this, that we almost had a gold medal in one of the table tennis, and one of the athletes that I will not mention the name, was very, very sad. She was crying and crying. So we had to console. So in other words, there's a lot of things that can be done to improve their confidence levels, and only time can do that. And with the help of the veterans, the coaches, and others, we will be able to achieve that as well.
Alright, maraming salamat po, Sir Michael Barredo, President ng Philippine Paralympic Committee.